right, welcome to today's episode of Tomorrow's Leader, where we dive deep on all things leader related to leading yourself and leading other people. And I have got a fantastic guest on today that I'm looking forward to getting into all kinds of leadership conversations with. Dave Resseguie. Dave's had an interesting background. He spent the first decade of his career working for two Fortune 100 firms and did a gutsy thing. In 2011, decided, you know what, he had a little kind of a side hustle going on that was starting to work really, really well. And he made the leap and is doing phenomenally well. This is a guy that's got a business that is booming and helping all kinds of companies, all kinds of organizations. I'll let him talk a little bit more about it. But Dave lives down in South Florida with his wife, Jennifer, and his three beautiful kids, and enjoying loving life and helping people make a difference in theirs. So Dave, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. So so many things I'd love to ask you about, but let me just start with a question. First of all, when you went off on your own, you made that change. I know a lot of people talk about, the fears and difficulties with making a change. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to, and I'm sure you have too, that said, wow, I should have done this, or I should have done that, but the fear, holds them back. How was that? Tell us a little bit about your experience and how you kind of made that step and obviously did it so well.
Yeah, well, what was actually really cool is in a way, I got pushed into it. So I had the luxury, back in April of 2011, I started a coaching practice on the side while I was working with these Fortune 100 companies. So for a few years, I built up a one-on-one kind of business development and personal development coaching practice. And then in 2015, I started traveling the country speaking. So I had the luxury of having a business established prior to launching full time. And then the organization that I was with in South Florida went through a merger. And as part of that merger, my spot was on the chopping block, and, they cut the spot. And then we had to make the decision, all right, do we interview for another spot with a great company and relocate or stay local, or do we go all in with the Resseguie group? And, thankfully, my wife, she's on our website as the chief encouragement officer. She said, listen, you've always wanted to run your own thing again. Let's do this. You got this. So we made that leap almost 3 years ago to where we've been running this full time for 3 years. And it was the best decision we made.
That's awesome. It's so important to have the support. So your wife was right there with you, encouraging you. That's phenomenal.
Sure.
Did you have times where you felt like, oh, geez, I made the wrong decision and maybe I need to go back? Or were you just out of the gates feeling it was the right thing?
I still do, man. I mean, there's the hills and the valleys, and sometimes the valleys get really low. But, you remind yourself of why you do what you do in the first place, and you always come back to the right frame of mind that what we're building is too meaningful to go do anything else. So, but yeah, there's still always those challenges. Every week, there's mental toughness that you got to fight through.
Yeah. So did you have a really clear vision on what you wanted? I mean, I know I was talking to you, I guess it was a couple months ago, and we were talking about how your business has evolved. How much of it was like, okay, I've got this crystal clear vision, and how much of it was, yeah, I kind of got a sense of what I want to do, and you kind of pivoted and whatnot? What was the balance?
Yeah, it was, fortunately, I have a lot of mentors in my life that I've admired from a distance, and I've seen different segments of the work that they do. So, I have a number of mentors that their entire business is one-on-one coaching. And I have other mentors that are traveling around the world, speaking to large audiences. And I thought, well, I like the idea of all of it. So I want to dip my toe in each of those areas. So it really started out as multi-variety type of work. It still in large part is that. I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of coaching. But what I'm most passionate about is getting up in front of a room and really sharing ideas that I know are going to inspire people. So a large part of it is that at this point.
So you kind of felt like you had a purpose, like, okay, you need to be in front of groups and impacting a lot of people. And you do it phenomenally well from everything I've seen and heard. So
thanks, brother. Yeah, I mean, I think there's just this realization. I mean, when I was in the firms that I got to work with, so often we would have meetings on a quarterly basis, and a speaker would come in and they would essentially say to our team the same exact thing that we would say on a daily basis. But for whatever reason, because they're from a different city or a different company, our team, it just resonated a little differently. And, there's that expression that a prophet has no honor in his own country, right? So I'm, in a way, that prophet that comes into a different country and says the same message. It strikes a different chord when I say it. So, yeah, for me, that's a big passion.
Yeah. Do you ever get nerves getting up there, or are you just in your zone when you walk up on a stage?
Yeah, for me, I'm in the zone. Occasionally, when I stop and think about it prior to getting up on stage, it's always humbling to, whether the audience is 15 people or it's 150 people or 500 people. You're the steward of what they're going to learn for the next 45 minutes or the next 90 minutes. So when I think about it, yeah, your nerves get going a little bit. But then I'll drink a glass of water, I'll take a deep breath, and I'll just remind myself, listen, I'm just here to serve them well and make an impact in their life. And it usually calms pretty quick.
Yeah, it's funny. I was doing an episode a few weeks ago about those pressure situations and how people calm themselves and whatnot. I find sometimes that larger audience is easier. A smaller audience, sometimes you just speak in front of 1,000+ people, you can't even see beyond the first few rows. But you've got to get yourself in that peak performance. There are days, obviously, when you have a speaking engagement, you may not even feel, you're in your A game. You may be waking up and you're like, a little groggy or whatever. Is there anything that you do in particular to kind of get yourself like, okay, how do I get myself to my peak performance? I know a lot of people ask that question.
So two things, Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. I listen to that in the hotel room. It just gets me amped up like I'm Rocky.
Love it.
And I think for me, I remind myself, nobody's here to see me. I'm here to serve them. And when I flip the narrative that I'm here to make an impact in their lives, they're not here for me. The spirit of service and the pride that goes out of you and the humility that comes on you in those moments are special. And then I just realized, I'm going to bring my best to these individuals and leave them in as best of a place as I can when this is done.
That's such a great perspective. So you have that servant mentality that, listen, I'm here. And I think a lot of people, it's the opposite. They're like, okay, I'm here because I earned my way to get here. And okay, now I've got your captive attention. You have to listen to me. But your vision is, okay, I'm serving you and I want you to come out of this a better version of yourself than you came in. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's times where you can be tempted to get puffed up and feel like you're good or whatever, right? And hopefully people do think, wow, he shares some ideas that are really great and I enjoy listening. But at the same time, right, I think I've just been blessed with some stories that I think make an impact in other people's lives. And if I can be that inspirer that gets people to tap into why they do what they do and who they are at their core, that's pretty special for me.
Yeah. So you've worked with, thousands of people, I'm sure, and some very, very successful people. I always love the stories about people that are the turnarounds, that took their life from one level to another level, or their business from one level to another level. When you work with those types of people, I mean, what are the things that you've seen them do or that you've helped them do? The ones that really, have explosive type of growth. And we know we've all seen people like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you asked that, I'm thinking of one individual specifically. This is an individual who, in their prior life, they were, the number one athlete in their country, in their sport. And they thought that they were going to play that sport professionally for a very long time. And then they had an injury. And they were elite in that sport. And the injury took them from ever being able to do it professionally. They kind of became a pro and taught people how to do this sport, but that's just different. Mm. And they came into a financial planning role with a really good company. And, when they came into the company, they were living a very, very, very humble lifestyle. I mean, lower income family, married individual, no children at that point, but very low on resources. But the amount of grit and vision and determination that they had to create a life for themselves and their family and their future was just insatiable. It was just so freaking awesome. And, when I first met this individual, nothing wrong with a Ford Taurus, but they were driving a real old beat up Ford Taurus with rust on the side. And, probably 180,000 miles, and you knew they weren't happy. Not that a car is going to make you happy necessarily, but they just every single day exercised coachability. They listened and leaned into the things that not just myself, but other mentors and developers taught them, and they acted on it. And now, I mean, this is a top 1% financial advisor in the world who, driving a phenomenal souped up Mercedes, lives in a beautiful home with a view of the ocean, and it just fantastic life. And not that the material possessions make life fantastic, but the demeanor and the overall impact and influence that this individual has now compared to what they had when they just started out, when they were nothing, right?
Yeah.
Other than who they were inside, and they just lived that out on a daily basis. So you got to get people to stay connected to their vision and their purpose in life. And they have a compelling enough why. Every day they tap into that and look at what they're creating.
Yeah.
They tend to create something pretty exceptional.
And a couple of things. First of all, that's phenomenal. I love stories like that. And, it's not even just the impact that he had on his life. Obviously, he got it because of the impact he had on other people's lives. So you think about the thousands of families he positively impacted. But you said something that is so important, and that's the coachability piece. And, I see people all the time that their ego is the thing that gets them, that stops them, prevents them from being truly great. I mean, I've seen unbelievably potentially great leaders or advisors or athletes or whatnot, and they stop being coachable. I mean, how often do you see that, and how do you deal with that? I mean, how important is the coachability factor at whatever level you're at?
Yeah, I mean, I think you always need to be growing, right? I mean, as good as you get, there's always someone that does what you're doing exponentially at a greater level. So as much as you want to challenge yourself, you got to surround yourself with people that are achieving things that you're not achieving in and of yourself. I mean, I had this 3-hour session this morning with someone that I hold in exceptionally high regard. And they live on the water, looking at the Atlantic Ocean. They have a lifestyle that I currently don't have. And they've made revenue that I've never made. And they've stood on stages that I've never stood on. And they've been able to do things for their loved ones that I haven't yet been able to do. And it just inspires me to take the actions that I need to create that in my life, right? Well, if you don't have a desire to grow, you're going to stagnate, and you're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. You're never going to stay in the same spot. So I think coachability is key. And coachability is not just listening for the sake of showing somebody that you're paying attention and taking some notes. Coachability is the action that you take based on the information that you put in. So yeah, you got to stay coachable.
Yeah. And when you speak to a group of 100 people, there's probably only 3 or 4 in there that really are going to take action on the stuff that they hear. So it's a great point. It's not just the willingness to listen, but it's the action items. And I see a lot of people too that may be great in, 9 out of 10 areas, which then they just become kind of hardened to advice in general. But you still need to figure out that other piece, right? That other one part that you don't know, and you can always get better, and you're always going to learn from somebody. It doesn't matter how good you're going to get. So that's key.
Sure.
How about in terms of adaptability? I mean, we've seen now, and for those that are watching this maybe at a different time, we're on the back end of the pandemic, COVID, and obviously that's forced people into a whole level of normalcy that they've had to pivot their businesses, their lives. I mean, everything. I mean, talk to me a little bit about that, the importance of adapting and how you do it or pivoting.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy time. I was driving to this meeting this morning, and I looked on my passenger front seat, and I saw a white kind of disposable face mask. And the thought that I said to myself out loud was, "Oh man, I forgot my good one at the house. Like I forgot my good mask. That's crazy, right?" So think about this, right? I'm a speaker, right, for the most part, and I earn revenue by standing up on a stage at a hotel ballroom in front of a physical audience. What do you think our revenue went to in, April or the end of March, right? It went from wherever we were at to zero. right? Nobody's doing that for the foreseeable future. So you've got to pivot. But here's what, for me, what worked really well, and I think with a lot of my clients and just a lot of forward-thinking people, a lot of times you say something in your mind, you have a thought that comes into your mind. And for a lot of my clients, the thought in the end of March was, Q2 is going to be tough. I might not be able to run as good of a business as I thought I was gonna. I'm gonna get really far behind on my goals. I'm gonna have a terrible sales quarter, whatever it might be. We have these thoughts that come into our mind, right? And the thought came into my mind, I might have a horrific Q2. So what I have to do is I have to ask myself a question, right? And the question I ask myself is, all right, that thought might be true or it might be false, right? It might be a horrific quarter, but that might not be true. What is the exact opposite thought to the thought that just came into my mind? So if the thought that entered my mind is this is going to be the worst quarter on the face of the planet, what's the exact opposite thought? Well, the exact opposite thought is this is going to be the most record-breaking quarter that the Resseguie Group has ever had. This is going to be phenomenal. So then to be fair, I remind myself, well, that new thought might be true, it might be false. Right? But then I ask myself, which of those two thoughts is adding more value to my life? Which of those two thoughts is giving me more passion and enthusiasm and engagement and inspiring me to put in more effort and to put one foot in front of the other? It's usually the more positive thought. Mm-hmm. So then is there any good reason why I would continue holding on to the first thought? No. Well, then move forward in a positive light. So I think especially in 2020, where we're talking with this whole COVID epidemic, right? Those leaders and those business owners and entrepreneurs or employees who made the decision to choose the positive thought and to step past this as if we're already beyond it, they're the ones that really have created some exceptional stuff that I think for the next decade is going to be reaping plenty of dividends for them and their businesses.
Mm-hmm. It's forced them into a whole new way of doing business. I mean, you think about how many people were never accustomed to doing meetings like this. I mean, I know I speak to a lot of businesses where they say, you know what, we've now learned that we can actually streamline our business. We can do more in less time. They've come out of this with maybe they were forced into a discomfort zone. But it pushed them into a new place of thinking of new ideas and new ways of doing business and everything like that. So, and I'm sure you see that too.
Well, not to give away our whole business model, but like if as a speaker, right, companies pay for speakers and speakers usually come at a reasonably high premium because they're able to do something that some people can't do. Well, if you're not going to get any speaking opportunities at your normal rate, you've got to pivot, right? So the companies that would hire someone like me, I ask myself, how can I make a decision for them to still hire me to be a no-brainer? They can get world-class speakers, and I'm not saying I'm a world-class speaker, but they can get world-class speakers at a fraction of the normal cost. So if they're going to get me at a fraction of my normal cost, how can I make that a simple decision for them to get me at a fraction, but at the same time grow my revenue to where it's not a fraction? Well, instead of one person getting me at a fraction of the cost, what if I got 15 people to get me at a fraction of the cost? And for each of them, it's a fraction of the cost, but for me, it's a multiplier of the cost for the same hour. Mm-hmm. So, you just need to think a little bit differently. Our audiences didn't go away. Our ideal client didn't go away. They actually became more accessible than ever if we just pivot. So you got to make those changes.
Yeah. I see a lot of people that just get stuck. It's paralysis by analysis. They don't even know what to do. And before you know it, then they really have, gotten into a place that it's hard to recover from. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit. I know you do a lot of what you talk about is the importance of gratitude. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. You see over my right shoulder, there's a yellow Ferrari on the Nick Murray books back there. So probably 8 or 9 years ago, I was working with a former coach of mine. I used to work with this coach I probably worked with him for 7, 8 years of my life. We would have conversations every other week for 30 minutes. And really, he helped me get my head on straight. I can remember 8 years ago, we were having a real hard conversation. I was in a bad spot. I was just really frustrated, annoyed, super pessimistic in that specific day. And we got on the call and he said, "Hey, Dave, what's got your attention that could be great for us to talk about?" And I said, "John, right now I'm pretty pissed off. I just got some stuff going on. I need to vent. Can I just vent?" And he said, "Go for it." So I vented, which is not like me, but I vented for like 29 minutes. And he said, "Well, hey, Dave, we got a minute left. Let's make sure our next call is scheduled. But I got a question for you. When you're driving, taxi cabs don't count, school buses don't count. How often do you see yellow cars?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I don't really see them all that often." And he said, "I have a homework assignment. For the next 2 weeks, not a taxi, not a school bus, but any other yellow car that you see. Every time you see a yellow car, I want you to out loud say yellow. Will you do it?" And I agreed that I would. And the ride home that day, what do you think I see, right? I see a yellow car. And then the ride into the office the next day, I see 2 or 3. And then it was 3 or 4 and 5 or 6. And it got to a point, my commute was about 45 minutes to an hour each way. It got to a point where every single day I was seeing about 15 to 20 yellow cars. So we got on our call 2 weeks later, and he said, "Hey, Dave, I gave you a homework assignment in the last call. Did you do it?" And I said, "Of course." And he said, "Well, what was your experience?" And I said, "John, you're not going to believe this. I'm seeing yellow cars left and right. I'm seeing 8 or 9, sometimes 10 every commute. It's crazy." And he said, "Well, what did you learn by doing it?" And I said, "What I learned is yellow cars exist, but often they get lost in the backdrop because all the normal cars are out there, the black cars, the whites, the navies, the reds, the grays, the silvers. But when I start acknowledging them, I start seeing them, pop up all over the place." And he said, "All right, well, that's a good lesson. How is that transferable to our conversation where you were really kind of negative and pessimistic and complaining?" I said, here's the practicality to me. In our lives, challenges come up, adversity comes up all the time, negative things happen. I mean, anyone that's trying to accomplish something exceptional, we always feel like we're pushing this boulder up a hill. And that's just all the normal stuff of creating an amazing life. And if we don't pay attention, we can get bogged down by all the normal negativity and pessimism and straining. But when we take time to acknowledge the things in our life that we have that we can be full of intentional gratitude for, right? When we just stop to celebrate the things that we can be grateful for, then we start seeing it all over the place.
Mhm.
So I pretty much just said, I just need to start seeing more yellow cars in my life.
Mhm.
And John Gordon's been a mentor from a distance in my life. John doesn't know me personally, but he's a phenomenal author and phenomenal motivator. And I remember about a year ago, my dad was in the hospital after having a stroke that almost took his life. And thankfully he's healthy today. And I emailed John in the hospital thinking I was going to lose my dad. And I said, "I was thinking about you today because you always say how you can't feel blessed and stressed at the same time. And right now, in the midst of what is seemingly a very stressful situation, all I feel is blessed for the time that I've been able to invest with my dad and the fact that I can take the time to control my calendar and be here right now. And I'm blessed that I'm even thinking about a saying that you can't be blessed and stressed at the same time." When we choose to exercise gratitude, our lives are so much better regardless of circumstances. So it's been a game changer for me, I think for a lot of people.
Mm, That's fantastic. I love that story. And, I think a lot of times too, it's the other takeaway from that is, there's everybody, it doesn't matter who you are. You've got stuff that's going wrong. I mean, there's things that are problems. There's things that are anxiety building. There's all kinds of issues. And it's what you choose to focus on. Those yellow cars are there. They're going to be there. You may notice them. Some people see them. Some people don't. But it doesn't mean they're not there. So I love that. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, I know a lot of people get sometimes, and you do a lot of work with people on planning and setting goals and everything like that. And I think a lot of people are using this time to kind of reflect on, okay, is my life heading in the right direction? Am I doing the right things? Is this the time to make a change? Is it not? Um, how important is it to reflect on your past and when you're thinking about the future? I mean, share a little bit about your perspective on that.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, so every quarter I'll take time, so we just did it, right? We started July. So the end of June was the end of Q2. And I do a process that's called quarterly rejoicing, reflecting, and reblending. And I think so many people, we ask ourselves really good questions. We ask ourselves, what do I need to do to get better? What do I need to do to finish 2020 strong? How can I make up for what I missed, right? What do I need to change about myself to get a better result? How much weight do I need to lose? How much more time do I need to spend with my family? Or, we ask ourselves good questions. But I just believe the timing of those questions is pretty critical. I think we're going to be in a much better mindset to answer those questions when we first take time to rejoice, to actually look back on the past. So for me, every quarter, like I just looked at April, May, and June. And I pulled out my iPhone, my camera roll on my phone, and I looked through pictures and I asked myself, in a number of areas of my life, what are the biggest wins? What were the things that we were able to do, or the events we were able to be a part of, or the clients that we were able to win, or the new people we were able to meet? What are the things that I was able to accomplish that I can rejoice and celebrate how far I've come to get where I am right now? Because we can deceive ourselves, right? Just because I feel a certain way because of where I'm at right now, and I may be forgetful of all the great things that have happened, if I ask myself, what do I need to do going forward without going back and celebrating how far I've come, those answers are not really going to be spot on accurate for what the correct solution is going to be. So I take time to celebrate and rejoice. Then I have clarity on, okay, where am I at right now? What changes and adjustments do I need to make going forward? And I think too many leaders don't reflect back. So 100%, I feel you got to reflect.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's so critical. And some people get stuck in the past, but some people tend to just be looking out the front windshield. When you're thinking about a lot of people looking to make a major transformation in this year, for example. What are the things, what goes into somebody that puts together a plan, that starts working on it? I mean, what are one or two things that make a huge difference in somebody's ability to stick to that plan and make it happen and make it work?
All right, so I'm going to do it right now and answer that question. Number one is you got to keep it in front of you. So you can see that like little letterboard up there, right?
Yeah.
So our mission is to shepherd others, but that is my vision. Those 4 areas, the hashtag medium 47. I love 47 brand t-shirts, but I currently don't fit into one confidently. Okay. So my vision on the year is to confidently fit into a medium 47 brand shirt. You got to keep it in front of you. The 31% increase on our revenue, I want to complete 3 books every quarter. And then by the end of this year, I want to be a 4:23 a.m. individual. I want to consistently be waking up at 4:23 a.m. That's a discipline at that time that I don't have in my life right now. So you got to keep it in front of you is the first thing, right? Mm-hmm. My background on my iPhone says 47. It says, I am a passionate, energetic, fit, healthy, 175 pounds. If you looked at my valet over there that holds my suit, in the front of it, there's a medium 47 brand t-shirt, right? So you have to keep your commitments in front of you, number one. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is you got to go public with it to people that can hold you capable. Brian Moran, a 12-week year. I've followed the 12-week year for probably 8 calendar years now. Game changer in my life. And I love how he defines accountability. A lot of people say, I need somebody to hold me accountable. That's totally a crock, frankly, right? Accountability is ownership. You need to own your actions. But what we do need, and when people say I need someone to hold me accountable, what they mean is I need someone to hold me capable. I am able and capable to do everything that I've committed to. I'm going to hold myself accountable as the owner of my actions, but I need someone to hold a mirror up to me. So for me, there's a few people in my life that I go to and I say, these are my not goals, these are my commitments. And I want you to check in with me on a very regular basis and ask me, am I doing the actions needed to get the outcome? So keep it in front of you, go public with it, and ask people to hold you capable. I mean, you asked for 2, but those are 3 that I think are critical.
Is there anything about those people that you need to kind of tasked with that? Any characteristics? I mean, do you want somebody who's going to be really hardcore and tough, or is it just everybody's different?
Yeah, for me, I'm an emotional person, right? So I don't want somebody to get in my face and beat me up if I don't do something. I prefer the cheerleader coach, the loving, empathetic coach that drives me more than the get in my face and beat me up. But there are plenty of people out there that say, I need you when I don't do what I say I'm going to do to get in my face. So I think it's an individual personality thing.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it's interesting, and this brings up a great leadership conversation because, I talk to leaders a lot of times that struggle with certain types of people. And it's usually, the conversation will be something like, hey, John, I'm having trouble leading a certain type of person. And this is the situation. And what it comes down to is that person just tends to be very different than them. And it's not that they can't lead, they just they don't adapt their style, because to your point, the style of leadership that would work for you would not necessarily work for somebody else, and vice versa. So flip it now to a leader perspective. How important is that to be versatile? And if somebody knows, okay, I need to be versatile, how do they learn that? How do they learn to be, adaptable to different types of people?
Listen, some leaders are so strong in one way of leadership that, like, some leaders are exceptionally empathetic, so they don't really have that challenger bone in them. That challenger bone is such a drastic weakness for them. And a lot of people would say you need to get better at your weakness. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's true that, yeah, you'd certainly need to improve your abilities as a challenger, but if your strength is empathy, you got to lean into your strength, right? Marcus Buckingham's an author who wrote Stand Out and, go put your strengths to work. And he talked about delegate your weaknesses and enhance your strengths. That's more my belief. So as a leader who's having a challenge driving behavior or changing someone else to do something that they need to do, frankly, I'd say play to your strength and then solicit the expertise of other leaders around you, whether they're from the outside or within your team, that can connect differently with that person. Like, you see the picture behind me of my high school basketball team. Mm-hmm. I had two coaches. They're the ones wearing the blue shirts. I had Jason and Lee. Lee was the one that would get in my face and tell me how bad I sucked at practice that day. And frankly, he would piss me off and get nothing out of me. But Jason would come alongside me immediately after and say, hey, when he was ripping you apart for this, here's really what he means by that. Bro, I'm so much like you. You need to do this. Can you do that? And I'm like, dude, I'll do it for you, but I'm not going to do it for Lee. Well, frankly, 18 years later, when I talked to Lee, I'm like, man, you really did get the best out of me, because you went over to Jason and said, I just ripped into him. I was bad cop. I need you to be good cop. Right? So I got both, but I didn't get both from each individual. I got the best of Lee in the jerk that he was, which now I appreciate more than anything else. I got the best of Jason in the empathy, and the two collectively pushed me to my best. Yeah. So I'd say delegate your weaknesses. Don't try to just change your weaknesses to become a strength.
Well, it's such a great point, because I think a lot of leaders get frustrated with that, because I truly, there's 1% of leaders can use 4 different styles of leadership. Most only use 1 or 2. But the way to solve for that, you don't have to be the person that is that versatile. That certainly makes you a better leader, but you can be an incredibly effective leader as long as you build your organization the right way. And to your point with your coach, he figured out how to do that. And a lot of leaders are great at that. They might be that, really hardcore leader naturally. I remember working under one who was really tough. But as long as they build their organization in a way where they have that empathetic leader, then that can work. That's what you're saying, that can actually work really well. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. What are the things that you see? What are dangers that you see leaders doing? Anything that sticks out and you got a lot of people that are listening to this that are maybe even newer leaders or new to their role, they just got promoted. What are some of the things that you see that might be common mistakes?
Man, I think culture is underrated, right? I mean, people join people. I think a lot of leaders right now are struggling with how do I have that hands-on shoulder in a non-hands-on shoulder world, in a socially distanced world? And I don't think enough leaders realize the importance of the personal regular check-in, right? I mean, leaders might schedule a Zoom call with their team once a week and then maybe do a quick phone call, but every meeting is just about the objective of the organization. But the best leader, I'm thinking of one guy specifically, I'll keep his name confidential, but there's this leader in St. Louis who is just, in my view, one of the most exceptional leaders. And I do a lot of work with people that this gentleman's close with. And every time I talk with someone that he leads, what they say is how much they love the way he cares about them as an individual. And because of that, he gets the most out of them professionally. He's someone that knows spouses' names. He knows children's names. He knows truly what's important to them in their vision personally for the next 3 to 5 years. He's intimately, in a way, intimately acquainted with their passions. And because of that, they feel compelled to run through a brick wall for him and do whatever he asks them to do professionally. I think a lot of people just try to drive the whip and get you to do what they want you to do. You got to pay attention to people, because if the individual is right, the executive is going to be right. If the individual is right, the salesperson is going to be right. But you need to pay attention to who people are on the inside if you want the best to come to the outside.
Yeah, I know people that have worked with, had people on their team for years, and they don't know their kids' names or their spouses' names or their pets or whatever, and don't take the time to take an interest in them. That's can be a common problem, a common issue. Yeah.
Yeah, listen, I mean, this might not be what your audience wants to hear when they're listening to this segment of our talk, but if you're that leader that John just described and you're listening to this segment of this podcast, if I were in your organization, I would leave. You've got to change that. You can't just say, hey, Dave, how are the wife and kids? You need to say, Dave, how are Jennifer, Charlie, Chaz, and Cameron? When you show me that you've paid attention to me and value me, I'll stay with you forever. That relationship is massively important.
Yeah, this trust that's built there. I did another episode on that, on the ways that great leaders even break down trust. I don't even realize it, but that's one way. Just to giving that impression or communicating that, you know what, the person that's important in this partnership is me, and that's what that says in reality. So what kind of things are you working on right now? I know you got a lot of stuff going on. What's hitting your day every day when you wake up? What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're doing a lot of virtual training and virtual work. I think what I'm most excited about, because I've already stepped into the future, is we'll finish 2020 strong, but I'm looking ahead to 2021, very optimistic and hopeful that we will be back to a new normal of meetings. So I'm actually already booking up January, February, and March 2021 for speaking engagements. Looking ahead to that. Trying to position it in a way where I can make it a no-brainer for clients that give me the privilege of serving them. And then actually currently we're taking some good time off in the month of July to hang with family. But, our days are spent doing group training, sales training, doing about 20 one-on-one coaching clients that we work with. We try to keep that under 24. And then some virtual keynotes as well. So, agencies or companies are still doing meetings. They're just doing it through Zoom or Skype. And a lot of times they'll tap my shoulder to come in and spend 45 minutes with their team. So we're doing a lot of that right now.
I feel like a lot of people have hesitated to bring in a speaker to do a Zoom virtual call because they feel like it's not going to be as effective, but it really is, right? I mean, it's not, granted, there's not the feel and the presence of being on a stage or having an auditorium, but the message is still shared the same way.
For speakers who can do it well, 100%, right? Because you can, with the video usage and sharing your screen, and you can still build empathy. Like, I'm making eye contact with you right now. I feel like we're in the same room right now. So speakers who do it well can drive phenomenal value add for the organization. And frankly, like, you're just getting their value for a much better price point. Yeah. So I think you're foolish if you're a leader and you're not inviting top talent to spend time with your team.
And bottom line, you have to look at every way you can bring your people together. I mean, this time people can feel isolated. They can start to, the culture, as you talked about, starts to break apart. You need everything going, every possible thing to get the team brought in, and, you know, bringing somebody like you in is a great way to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You can't over communicate at this point.
yeah. So I know we're closing in on the end here, but any last pieces of advice that you'd give to our listeners, whether, again, they're people that are looking to lead themselves better, or maybe they're formal leaders or informal leaders in an organization? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, one, practice intentional gratitude, like we talked about. Just see more of the yellow. Um, you certainly can check out on my website. I mean, that process of quarterly rejoicing, reflecting, and reblending. There's not been one thing in my life that's made more of an impact on me personally than that. And then the final thing, I mean, we've all heard, if you want to know who you're going to be 5 years from now, take a good look at your 5 closest friends and the information that you put in your mind, right? So I'd ask you, who are you investing your time with right now? And what knowledge are you putting in your mind right now? Just keep creating your best life right now.
Awesome. Great stuff. So I know 423, you want to wake up every day. What's the significance of 423 exactly?
Yeah, I mean, 9 is my favorite number. For years, I have what I call I am statements. A lot of coaches refer to I am statements or affirmations, right? So for years, I had I am a 4:30 a.m. man, and we just changed it to 4:23. But my children wake up around 6:30. Some mornings 6. So when I have a focused 90 minutes to get my head in a book that's really important to me, and to read a couple other books, and to exercise, and to plan my day out before they wake up, that's meaningful. And right now I probably have about 60 minutes or 50 minutes, because I'm getting up between 5:30 and 5 a.m. So we want to drive to 4:23 to get the full morning routine in.
That's good, man. You gonna do it?
Oh yeah, it's a commitment, not a goal.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, we'll be there.
That's awesome, man. Good stuff. So if people want to get a hold of you, whether it's to talk about coaching or maybe bringing you into their company or organization to speak, how do they do that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so they could check me out on my website, which is theresseguiegroup.com. We could put that, I guess, maybe in the link for the podcast.
Yep.
And then I'm active only on 2 social media platforms, but I use Facebook and I use LinkedIn. So if you just search Dave Resseguie, I'm on there. I mean, feel free to connect and follow me for a period of time to see what I'm all about. And if that resonates, yeah, I'm happy to explore where the work that I do could add value.
Awesome. Great stuff, man. This has been a pleasure having you. Lots of great value that you've added. I hope you keep us updated on all the good stuff ahead for you, and maybe come back and join us again.
I sure will, man. Thanks for the invite to be part of this. I appreciate you.
Awesome. All right, everybody. This has been Dave Resseguie joining us on Tomorrow's Leader, a guy making a big impact and helping people make big impacts in their life. As always, appreciate your sharing this, your comments, your likes, your suggestions. Most of our great topics come from you. Keep listening, keep watching, keep leading. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.